Y'all have been asking for a full tutorial on how I made the duffel bag. Now, I've only been sewing for a few months, so I don't know all the terminology, but I'm going to do my best to explain the process to you so maybe you can follow along. And get ready to screenshot right here because here are my dimensions. I'm going to be putting out a pattern for this pretty soon on my website. I have just used tutorials that I've learned from other people on TikTok on how to do boxy bags, makeup bags, hot tool bags, and so I just sort of played around with dimensions and created a way to make a duffel bag and then sort of made up the way I do the pockets and the straps and everything. I don't think there's a right or wrong way, so you do what suits you best and what you're good at. So first I cut my outer fabric, my inner fabric, and my fusible fleece to the dimension that I listed before. I also cut my pockets out and cut a lining fabric out for those as well, and we will get back to that. I am actually quilting lines onto the outer fabric of this bag, so if you don't do that part, just skip it. I'm using a water soluble pin just to get my first line going and created a diagonal across the entire piece. And then this is my quilt guide. I got this off of Amazon and it's universal, so it should fit in your machine, and I am just quilting my lines using that guide, and it really makes things easy because you only have to mark out your first line and then you can go from there. So now I'm ready to get my zipper attached. When I'm making a boxy style bag, I always cut my zipper about 1 to 2 inches wider than the width of the piece of my outer fabric. I use a bulk roll of zipper thread and then I cut it to size, and it comes with the little hardware that you need for it. I find that this is easier to do for me and it saves money. Laying your first outer piece face up, your zipper face down, and your liner face down, you're going to sandwich those together and clip them in. This will help everything stay straight. Now, I just realized that my machine did come with a zipper foot. I tried it out before and I don't really like it. I just prefer using my regular foot, and I'm going to sew a line along the top of that, keeping my zipper lined up as evenly as possible down the side of that foot. I also end up moving my zipper out of the way halfway through the process. You don't have to iron, but it really does help lay all of this fabric flat. So you're going to flip the pieces right side out, and then you're going to sew right along that zipper. You can see here I'm having to lift my foot up partway through, move my zipper out of the way, and keep going. Just make sure you don't run your zipper right off the edge. Okay, so now that you have your zipper attached to one of your panels, you're going to lay your second outer panel face up, your new zipper panel face down, and then your extra piece of liner face down on top of that. Make your sandwich and clip everything together, and you're going to sew again along that line. Flip your fabrics right side out, iron them down, and do a top stitch just like you did on the first step. All right, now we're going to take the fabric that we cut for the ends of our zippers and create little tabs that are going to go on both sides. So I'm folding the fabric wrong sides together, sewing a line, and then I'm turning it right side out, pushing it down flat, and then sewing 2 lines across it to create a strip. And then when you fold it in half, you've got this little tab. These are oversized tabs. You can do them smaller if you want. I just thought they fit the size of the duffel better. So you're going to lay that on one side of your zipper. Make sure your panels are all flattened out, and then sew really slow right over that zipper. For the tab where the zipper closes, make sure your zipper's on the inside of the bag so that you don't sew it on the outside and then you can't use the zipper anymore. All right, so the zipper tabs are done. We are now going to sew up little pockets so that we can put those on both sides of the panels. So I put my liner and my outer pocket wrong sides together and sewed almost all the way around, leaving a place that I could turn it right side out. I'm using just a chopstick to push out my corners really nice and crisp. And then I'm sewing that pocket down all the way around and closing up that gap I had left. Before I add the pocket to the bag, I went ahead and put my logo on here. I've already posted a full tutorial on how I made that logo for very cheap, and it was really easy. I'm pinning my pocket on the bag. I measured where the center point is, and then I'm going to do both sides just like that. Go ahead and sew it down, but leave the top open. Now we're going to work on the straps. I'm making them double-sided, so I'm putting right sides together, and I'm going to sew all the way down one side of that. You're going to open it up and press it down. This makes the steps much easier. And then you're going to fold each fabric onto itself. You can go ahead and press that down too. And then you're going to fold it in on itself and sew a line all the way down. You're going to do this for both straps, and that gives you a double-sided strap, which just gives the bag a little bit of an elevated look. All right, now we're going to sew our straps onto the bag before we do anything else with it. I'm just clipping my straps along the edge of each of the pockets so that the bottom lines up with the bottom of the pocket, and then I am not sewing all the way to the zipper. I'm only sewing to the top of the pocket. Now we are going to take both of our outer fabric panels only. So leave the liner separate, line them up on the bottom edge, clip together, and go ahead and sew that together. You're gonna do the same thing for your liner fabrics, but you're gonna need to leave a gap that's big enough for your hand to go through so that you can turn it inside out or right side out later in the steps. We're basically following the boxy bag steps. You're gonna take your outer fabric and you're gonna mash it down to where the seam that you just sewed matches up with the zipper. And then you're gonna do the same thing for the liner fabric, fold it to where it mashes down and that seam matches up with the zipper on the bottom side. And you can go ahead and clip everything together, and you're gonna sew all 4 of those layers all the way down. Make sure you go really slow over your zipper so you don't break your needle. And then you will have some excess, and it's gonna help you if you just trim that off. All right, now I did this whole bag tutorial before I figured out how I like to do my corners with French seams. So I would definitely do it a different way now, but you want to cut out your little squares of your corners so you can box them out. Once you have all 4 of your corners boxed out, you can now flip your bag right side out through that hole that you left in the liner. And then you can go ahead and sew up that little gap that you left in the liner. We no longer need to do that again. Now you're going to pull your corners together like this. Make sure your liner fabric is all the way to the edge so that you capture both of them and your liner doesn't slip back in there. And then you probably want to sew a 1/4 inch inside so that you capture both your liner and your outer fabric. This is what it should look like. And when you look in the inside, you make sure your liner fabric got sewn into that corner. I'm going to show you again on another corner because I know this is really hard to follow if you've never done a boxy bag, but I highly recommend you go look at my tutorial for how I do them now because it's a lot easier. You want to trim off any of your extra fabric, and now we're going to flip the bag inside out again, and we are going to close up those raw edges on all 4 corners. This is what it should look like. It's like a French seam, and it does give your bag some structure. So you should no longer see any raw fabrics. And you are done. It's really no different than doing a typical makeup boxy bag. It's just a lot bigger, so it's a little bit harder to work with. And because you're adding pockets and straps, it just takes a little bit longer. I absolutely love the size of this bag. It's perfect for like a little weekender bag. I'm hoping to make a better tutorial for this soon because I definitely filmed this before I started doing tutorials. Let me know if you have questions. Okay, bye.